Chapter 4 and 5 application problems. What is the exact value of tangent negative 14 pi over 3 if it exists? So first, I'm going to use a hand trick here. And so when you look at your hand, I'm looking at the palm of my hand. My thumb refers to pi over 2. My pointer finger is pi over 3. My middle finger is pi over 4. My ring finger is pi over 6. My pinky is anything without a denominator. That's reference angles, so it's like 0. And so since this is 14 pi over 3, the pi over 3 is what I'm key off of. The pi over 3 finger is your index finger. So I'm going to find what tangent of pi over 3 would be first, and then we'll figure out if it's positive or negative. So tangent of pi over 3, I would bend my index finger, I'd flip my hand over. Since I have my 3 fingers, my pinky, my ring, and my middle finger above the bended pointer finger, that would be telling me that my y's are square root of 3. My x, since I have one finger down below the bend, is square root of 1. And h, as always, is square root of total fingers, which is square root of 4, which becomes 2. So psi y cos x tangent is y over x. And I forgot to simplify this. This becomes just 1 right there. So that means that I have square root of 3 divided by 1. So my tangent value is square root of 3. Now I just have to figure out if it's positive or negative. So here's what I'm going to do here. Negative 14 pi over 3. If you wanted to use your calculator, here's how you do this. You would come over here and do 14 just divided by 3. Don't worry about the pi for right now. And you see that this number rounds to 5. So this is similar, since I didn't put the pi, this is rounding to 5 pi. And specifically, it's negative 5 pi because that negative there. So if I went over here, negative just means you go down. So we start here at 0. We go around, that's negative 1 pi, negative 2 pi's, negative 3 pi's, negative 4 pi's, and we are now approaching negative 5 pi's. But you see how this number doesn't actually get there? So it's in the third quadrant. So if we had something in the third quadrant, here's what we can say. That my y values are negative, and my x values are also negative. So I'll have a negative x and a negative y. So this is negative, and this is negative. Meaning if both of these are negative, what happens to two negatives? They turn positive. So my answer is actually just going to be the positive square root of 3. Now let's try it again with this secant 9 pi over 2. So what I'm going to first do is find secant of pi over 2. This is called using your reference angle. So secant of pi over 2, let's see. Pi over 2 finger is your thumb. So if I bent my thumb and flip my hand, I would find out that y's have a square root of 4, which becomes 2. X is 0. I have 0 fingers below the bend. I've bent my thumb and flipped my hand. And h, again, always simplifies to become the 2. Now, secant's relationship, if you're not sure, press the trig button. See how it goes sine, cosine, tangent. These are the reciprocals. Sines, reciprocal, cosines, reciprocal, tangent. Here's secant. That means it's cosine's reciprocal. So instead of being x over h, this is h over x. So I take my h and divide it by my x, which math rule, you're never allowed to divide by 0. So this is undefined. And finally, here let's find cosecant of negative 13 pi over 6. So I'm going to first start with what is the cosecant of pi over 6. This is using reference angles. So that would equal, if I'm trying to find that, pi over 6 finger, let's see, thumb is pi over 2, index finger pi over 3, middle finger pi over 4, we skip pi over 5, so a ring finger is pi over 6. So I'm skipping my ring finger. I have one finger up above for y. I have 3 fingers down below for x, so square root of 3, and h always becomes 2. So now CSC, let's go back over here, CSC, cosecant's right there. That means, since it's the first and the second set, that kind of corresponds to sine. So instead of being y over h, it's going to be h over y. Our h is 2, our y is 1. Now we just need to determine, is it positive or negative? So we didn't have to do that on the part B because it was undefined, but here we do. So negative 13 pi over 6. This is just going to be a little bit more than negative 2. So what I'm going to do is come over here and figure out the exact value, just in case I don't know. I can say negative 13 divided by 6. I'll put the decimal there so it gives me. It's just a little bit more than a negative 2. Okay, so if I went around, this would be negative 1 pi. This is negative 2 pi, but since it's a little bit more, it's going to be somewhere over here. Now, if we have a point somewhere over here, because the x is to the right, it's a positive x, but since the y is down, it's going to be a negative y. So I'll put the negative on the y's, and the positive here, that's a positive x. CSC, we said is h over y, which means this needs to be a negative. So this would simplify to become -2. Now we can check all these values in the calculator, but this should be spot on.